Autumn 1730th year. A small carriage crosses the suburbs of Vienna. This is a swampy area where in those days a large construction project was carried out, the sounds of which could be heard through the windows of the carriage. And through the windows of the carriage stories were heard about the severity of the life of the beggars and their sufferings. It was an unusual picture for someone who watched it through a small carriage window. All this was accompanied by pictures of the incredible number of towers under construction, churches with the images of Christ, pointing his fingers to heaven, and at the same time incredible amount of wrecks that sat under these heavens, the earth. This is not why the passenger of this carriage was traveling here for. Having earned the glory and recognition of all Europe, which gave him the right to send customers and musicians to hell, but as a result of intrigues, he had won contempt among recent admirers. He went to a foreign country in the hope of elementary human survival. So, we are talking about the last days of the greatest composer of his era, Antonio Lucio Vivaldi. Arriving to Vienna, Vivaldi found himself in a position of extreme uncertainty. According to some sources, he had in his hands an invitation from Charles VI, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. It is worth telling separately who Charles was, the emperor at that time. He took the throne in 1711 as a result of the death of his brother Joseph I. Charles was 26 years old. He immediately plugged into politics, and after 2 years a pragmatic sanction came out of under his pen, which, in the absence of male offspring, gave the entire monarchy to the female line of Charles' offspring. At that time, Charles did not have children yet, and the firstborn soon died. After that, only daughters were born to Charles. Much later, only in the middle of 1720s, Charles managed to achieve recognition of the pragmatic sanction, first from Spain and then from Russia. But the disagreement of countries such as France and England ultimately influenced the Spanish court, and the latter withdrew their confession. Such a discord between foreign policy circles could not fail to be picked up by domestic political players. And despite the recognition of the sanction by the estates of the Holy Roman Empire, Bavaria showed their disagreement. All the further events should be perceived solely from the both internal and external contradictions through the reigns of Charles. So back to the events that happened 20 years later. But let's not forget what led to them just in the mentioned dates of the mid-20s of the 18th century. In 1727, Vivaldi wrote an opus of 12 violin concertos. The title of this, without exaggeration, a masterpiece of the opus, is very laconic, La Cetra, and immediately on the title page we can read whom this opus is dedicated, further in accordance with the original. Concert consecrated by the Holy Catholic and Royal Majesty, represented by Charles VI, Emperor, the third King of Spanish Bohemia and Hungary, authorship of Antonio Vivaldi. And here each of you has a question. Vivaldi took the initiative hoping to draw the attention of monarch to himself, or did he receive an order from the monarch? There are no confirmations, in the direction of this or that version. But there is an indirect confirmation of the first version. This is exclusively my version. The argument to my version that Vivaldi himself decided to win the patronage of Charles is as follows. In the appendix to the La Cetra manuscript, the composer complied a note with the following content: Your Sacred Imperial, Catholic and Royal Majesty. Surely, Your Sacred Imperial, Catholic and Royal Majesty, the deeply rooted and age-old custom of putting the name of the famous and great personality at the top of the published work is praiseworthy for many reasons. It is an expression of the fact that the author holds this personality in veneration, and at the same time of the hope that the worthy name will protect the work from the criticism of others. Thus, most exalted Emperor, I do not believe to commit the sacrilege of the boastfulness when I adhere to this praiseworthy custom and offer audience my work, however welcome it may be, with the glorious name of the monarch who is indeed the most clement, generous, and characterable protector and patron of the arts. The arts flourish and thrive in the shade of your unvanquished rule, and thanks to your generous protection, they are the beacon of our day and age, belittling in past and becoming an object of envy for the future. Therefore, I am asking your sacred, imperial, Catholic and Royal Majesty to accept my humble gift with their usual kind benevolence, while I pray with the entire Catholic world that you may live long and multiply your glory to protect the arts and safeguard happiness. Antonio Vivaldi. We will return to the language of presentation in this dedication a little later. In the meantime, let's return to the events that brought Vivaldi to Vienna in 1740. After a series of failures as an opera composer in Ferrara and his dismissal from Ospedale della Pietà, Vivaldi was forced to earn his own living. He, like today, resorted to large-scale self-promotion. And the first thing he started looking for connection among the Viennese and Bohemian nobility. In 1738, opera L'Oracolo e Messenia was planned at the Cornentor Theatre that looked forward to the great hopes. But this venture failed, and already in October 20, 1740, Emperor Charles VI died unexpectedly from mushroom poisoning, and his death led to a year of mourning, during which the entertainment was prohibited. From that moment on, the struggle for the throne began, and the main heiress of which was Maria Theresa. It is quite obvious that the fate of the Venetian composer did not bother anything during the political wars for the throne. Vivaldi's life in Vienna under such circumstances is difficult to describe without sympathy. Here is the documentary description of the departure from the biographical manager Biographema by Royal Butler. Vivaldi's departure from Venice was to take place shortly after Pietà paid him his last salary. According to the protocol of July 4, 1740, the bailiff came to his apartment on May 24, 25, and 27 to summon him as a witness, since the singers were suing for the payment of the last opera presented in the fall of 1739, Raspe, for which the impresario Rini was in charge. the composer should have been heard of his own fee. However, neighbors said that he had already left the city. Thus, he had to leave for Vienna between May 12 and 24, 1740. Further, from the testimonies we learn about what happened to the composer already in Vienna itself after his arrival. Vivaldi visited Anton Ulrich, Duke of Saxe-Meiningen, one snowy winter on 8 February 1741, and attempted to sell his concert. He had already tried twice to see the Duke, but although Saxe-Meiningen was known as the patron of music, and he always collected huge collections of scores and the like, when visiting Vienna, he did not accept Vivaldi. It was this behavior of the nobles that caused the composer's manner and his dedication to the one of his opuses. They pretended that the art was the sign of their taste, but more often than not, it is happened that their circle of demonstration of good taste included card games, entailing huge debts. As a result, they had no money left to spend on art. Another document depicts the sale of 12 scores for a small amount of money. On June 24, 1741, Antonio Vivaldi personally signed a receipt to the secretary of Tommaso Vinciguerra di Collallo, a nobleman from Friuli, in a receipt of 12 Hungarian ducats for Tanta Musica. June 24, 1741, Vienna. I, undersigned, happily confirmed to the Secretary of Excellency of Antonio Vinciguerra, Count of Colalto, that I have received 20 Hungarian ducats on account and by the order of His Excellency for the music sold to him. This ridiculous payment was the last drop of despair, which only reflected the end of Vivaldi's lifetime genius. According to Wangenstein, the letters of his name reflect the sadness of previous month. The name is similar to the adjective. A month later, Vivaldi died on the night of July 27, 28. The last documents attesting to Vivaldi's stay in Vienna are the records of the coroner and the register of burials at the St. Stephen's Cathedral. The entry in the funeral collection register reads, among other things, the Reverend Mr. Antonio Vivaldi, a secular priest who died of pulmonary gangrene at the age of 60, was seen by the coroner at the Waller's home near the Garician Gate and was buried in the city hospital cemetery. You have the personality of the day, the season, life, climate, wind, fog, swarm, flock. The street enters the composition with the horse, as the dying rat enters the composition with the air, and the beast and the full moon enters the composition with each other. Climate, wind, season have no other nature than things, animals, or people that inhabit them, follow them, sleep, and wake up with them. These words are attributed to Spinoza. To this we add only the following: they themselves put him on this throne, and they themselves threw him off this throne. They performed both actions with equal ease, like a child tired of his toys.